Tonight we got a lore post originally posted in the July 2020 8/7 jump point. Now, what's interesting about this jump point article is that it's actually from an in-game book that the lore team is putting together. This is Chapter 7, Calming the Crossroads of Crime, and it takes place in the Nexus system, a system that we know little about. So this is actually a really fun story, not just because of what the exciting topic is, but also because it'll give us a little insight into what the Nexus system will be like. So this is Chapter 7, Calming the Crossroads of Crime, from the in-game book Law and Disorder, The Constant Fight for a Peaceful Empire. The events surrounding Keller's run shocked the Empire and embarrassed the advocacy. The inability of the UEE's top law enforcement agency to stop one criminal from wreaking havoc across 5 systems transformed them into a punchline overnight. Vids of the dramatic chase flooded Spectrum. Each portrayed the advocacy as disorganized and unable to contain the chaos caused by a single, skilled pilot, fleeing from enraged outlaws, opportunistic body hunters, angry civilians, and local law enforcement. The following day, Advocacy Director Renzo Barlanga met with Imperator Mikhail Sheridan and offered his resignation. Imperator Sheridan wasted no time in asking, "Do you want to be remembered as the director who let this happen, or the one who fixed it?" Bolstered by the Imperator's call to action, Director Barlanga instituted sweeping reforms that would affect the agency and the Empire. He restructured existing operation teams by isolating and removing agents that weren't effective in the field, raised the advocacy's enrollment standards, increased annual training requirements for all agents, established inter-system exercises, and much more. Berlanga also had an extensive discussion with the Imperator about Nexus, the figurative and literal center of Keller's run. Following the discussion and others within the government, the UEE officially reclaimed Nexus in 2931 in an attempt to break up the cluster of unclaimed systems. Experts would ultimately credit these initiatives with positively reforming the advocacy, but many of the practical effects would take time to manifest. Meanwhile, crime rates continued to rise through 2932 and 2933, with Nexus seeing one of the most significant spikes in illegal activity. By 2934, Director Berlanga realized that systematic reforms could only go so far, and more focused approach would be needed to address specific issues in each system. First on his list was Nexus. Without any fanfare, he visited the system, met with Section Chief Alessa Maori, and requested a tour. SC Maori quickly assembled its small team for protection and took Director Balanga on a safe tour of the system. 10 minutes into it, he told me to cut the shit and show him what's really going on, recalled SC Maori. So I took him to Nexus 3. Once he saw how entrenched gangs were in these old mining sites and underground facilities, he understood that more agents and better equipment weren't gonna fix this. Thus began an open and honest conversation between Director Berlanga and SC Maori about how to bring law and order to the system. While the rise in crime rate statistics could be attributed in part to additional advocacy field agents logging more arrests and incident reports, SC Maori believed that these low-level arrests were actually serving to increase syndicate activity, with the majority of the arrests being unaffiliated or low-level operators. Small and medium-sized outlaw packs either consolidated or integrated themselves into bigger syndicates that could promise protection in numbers. One advocacy source even claimed that Supreme, one of Nexus 3's most notorious gangs, had almost doubled in size since 2932. I told the director that we should enforce UEE laws, but do so strategically by targeting and focusing attention on prominent syndicates one by one. I figured that concentrating resources would be more effective and hopefully spread the word that the advocacy meant business once it set its sights on you, recalled SC Maori. Director Berlanga agreed with the approach and extended his stay in Nexus to strategize. He considered several plans before deciding the Supreme's expanding influence made their headquarters on Nexus 3 a prime target for such a statement strike. Resources and agents from other systems made their way to Nexus, and in the early hours of July 24, 2934, launched with a search warrant listing a litany of crimes allegedly carried out by members of the Syndicate. No one expected the Supreme to surrender quietly. With Director Berlanga back at Advocacy Headquarters, S.E. Mowry oversaw the operation from a command ship in orbit above Nexus 3. Advocacy Tactical Team Leader Terrence Kemp snuck an advanced team into the Supreme base to disable the facility's anti-aircraft turrets. After achieving their objective, they were discovered and engaged in a fierce firefight. Their success allowed Advocacy dropships to deploy more agents, as Supreme rallied forces and mounted a vigorous defense. Meanwhile, Advocacy ships quickly abandoned their plan to attack the radar tower after the rapid arrival of Supreme ships and deployment of unprecedented and extremely deadly weapon, an old orbital mining laser modified to defend the base. Inside the facility, Advocacy agents slowly made their way through the darkened halls, running into resistance around every corner. The still active radar tower allowed Supreme forces to skillfully coordinate their response and control the weaponized mining laser. Tactical Team Leader Kemp believed the Supreme were orchestrating their operations from a command center inside the facility. Finding it would become his primary objective. There was no time to strategize. We were under constant harassment from a force defending their home turf, recalled Kemp. Eventually, we reached an open, common area with several hallways branching off of it. I was about to send agents down each one when I spotted something, a strange marking on the wall that looked like Banu, word for war. Next to the glyph was an arrow pointing down one of the hallways. Similar strange symbols were near each hallway entrance, but none reused that same shape language. Only after the attack did Advocacy learn the Supreme had created a unique set of symbols so that those that could not read or speak standard could still navigate the facility. Kemp's familiarity with Banu paid off, as the hallway led to War Room, where Supreme commanders were coordinating operations. Breaching the room proved to be a harrowing and costly endeavor for Advocacy forces, but following a fierce firefight, they gained control of it, tipping the battle in their favor. Once the radar tower was destroyed and the mining laser was taken offline, the surviving Supreme fighters fled. Kemp's team slowly and carefully cleared the facility, eliminating any remaining pockets of resistance. With their headquarters in Advocacy hands, the Supreme were effectively crushed. Surviving Syndicate members would try to reconstitute the group over the years, but they were never again major players in the Nexus underworld. Although Director Berlanga was happy with the outcome, he was concerned about the high number of casualties. Still, he instructed S.C. Mowry to capitalize on this momentum and continue to clear out outlaws entrenched in Nexus 3. Under S.C. Mowry's guidance, the Advocacy spent the next few years slowly reclaiming the planet. To ensure outlaws wouldn't flee only to return later, the Advocacy worked with the UEE military to bring in troops to hold the facility and establish their own base. Yet, not everything went smoothly. In 2935, outlaws displaced by the UEEs retaking the Nexus 3 perpetrated the horrific Walzer massacre at Op Station Daimane. The event shocked the Empire and hardened the Advocacy's resolve to bring law and order to the system. S.C. Mowry's stewardship of the initiative earned her a promotion to Deputy Assistant Director and paved the way for her replacement, Section Chief Consuelo Ivory, to reclaim Nexus 4. Then politics intervened when scrutiny from the Senate subcommittee revealed how many credits were spent and Advocacy officers lost in reclaiming Nexus 3. Senators questioned what was gained besides aging bases on an abandoned and resourceless planet, and threatened to cut the Advocacy's budget if a similar brute force approach was taken on Nexus 4. Already under fire for Skycap scandal, where 20 of the Advocacy's Avenger Titan renegades disappeared only to end up in outlaw hands, Director Berlanga acquiesced to political pressure and stopped the plan to retake Nexus 4. The failure to be able to fully secure Nexus 4 has resulted in the system's strange security situation. Nexus 3 is accessible to military personnel only, while Nexus 4 still has a strong outlaw presence and remains one of the most dangerous planets in the UEE. For some, the UEE's attempt to calm the crossroads of crime exemplifies its struggle to bring law and order to the Empire. Once one hotspot is stamped out, another immediately flares up. Now, this is the end of Chapter 7, and this is an interesting discussion. So this is from Nexus. If you caught on, probably a bit halfway through. This is direct lore to support Theaters of War. Now, Theaters of War is going to be a new module, a new type of play mode that kind of combines some of the best aspects of Star Marine, the best aspects of Arena Commander, into a combined arms gameplay, a lot like a Battlefield or an Arma, kind of merged together into the Star Citizen universe. And as Sean Tracy puts it, an attempt to consolidate gameplay statistics that would otherwise not happen that often. I.e., is the Ursa rover overpowered versus 5 foot-based troops, or is a Buccaneer starship too powerful against a ballista, or is a ballista just a death zone and it's unstoppable, and we need to balance that. So this gameplay mode that allows you to respawn, and it is coming out in the future. There's been Evocati tests. There's been internal gameplay testing. Heck, even at CitizenCon, they let anyone play it. They signed up for a session. They could play it. I was not lucky enough to be able to go to a CitizenCon, but that one of the most recent that was in person, CitizenCon, had this as a session. And hopefully soon, at the very least, the PTU will be able to experience Theaters of War, and in the near future. There were some hints made by the devs about considering bringing this back out, and there's still work being done on it, et cetera, and that it's kind of being done in parallel with the persistent universe development in tech. I'm very excited about Crossroads at the Theaters of War, and the name of the map, if I'm not mistaken, was Crossroads of Crime. And it's not a coincidence it had an old mining laser. It's not a coincidence that the Supreme is versus the UEE forces is what you're dealing with. In this case, that's where this lore came from. It's the back support that kind of gave the storyline. Even like the symbols on the wall that are mentioned in this story come from that map. As they developed it, they thought about having this kind of combination of different forces that were forced to work together as part of the Supreme. Some of them would be, understand some Banu, symbols, or at the very least understand that, hey, if I follow this symbol, I know this symbol goes to there. And the idea is that people that weren't in the club may have a hard time understanding different symbols. It doesn't just say, hey, here's where our secret hideout is. Hey, here's where our chow room is. Only they would know those things until you learn the base a little bit. In this case, you had UEE forces that were lucky enough to understand that letter. And by the way, if we find out the Ba knew a word for war, it may help you in this Theaters of War gameplay. Please post it below if you know what it is off the top of your head. But S.C. Mowry's team that he chose certainly did. And I would say that this is exciting. This is interesting. I wish that more of this content was provided. I wish Jump Point to me is a made for subscribers, basically like an e-magazine, if you will. Each month one comes out, and they're very cool. They have a lot of good content. The thing is, I would like more of that content to trickle down into this public-facing side, because there's a lot of great content that I cannot cover. I don't want to directly link to these stories, but once they're out on the main page, I can cover them. I can talk about them. I also think they're strategically chosen. It seems that these are talked about right before or during relevant things. So, for example, the most recent one, I did the UEES Flyza and the crash that occurred. I'm going to put the link to that card at the end of this video, so you can check that dramatic reading as well. That was my first dramatic reading. This is going to be my second. That one was done right before we had a Javelin tour. So I can't help, but I'm not saying I'm hyping here. I try to beat the hype. I try to not do fruit of the moment stuff. Well, who am I kidding? I love fruit of the moment stuff. But I try to at least temper expectations and try to provide a honest, backer viewpoint that is not, just endlessly cheering for different things, and be practical about things. But I can't help but notice that this is introduced. We haven't heard a little bit about Theaters of War in a little bit. I would like to see that come to the PTU. Even if it isn't perfect and even if it's just stuck 16v16, I would love this game mode to be able to play test things without repercussions, without fear, be able to make more friends. All community events that I've had and events where you have that kind of having fun without any serious repercussions. I've made a lot of great people, I've met a lot of great community members over the years that way. I'd like to see more of that. I think theaters is one more way to kind of introduce that. That's just my opinion. And also it could test the waters. If it isn't well received, so be it. If it is, great. I don't see it as something that's going to interrupt PU or squadron development. It is made concurrently. I trust CIG that they state that it is only limited resources that are placed that are not already going to be introduced, resources that are made anyway for the PU or at least squadron. So yeah, exciting stuff, interesting. I can't wait to see more of it. I'm going to end on this. If you enjoyed this, please be sure to hit like, please subscribe and comment. In particular, if you had an issue with this, comment. If you don't feel comfortable with public comments, I've had some great conversations all the time, really. People have reached out to me constantly. There's a Discord down below, that a great group of folks, accept anybody, and just enjoyed playing all sorts of games, including Star Citizen. And you can also reach out directly to me at RedJay, #0001 on Discord. If you don't feel comfortable with posting, actively and publicly on YouTube. I've found that the community seems to be split, and I'm perfectly cool with that. I love talking shop. I love talking about the game. I love developing this channel more. And I hope you get something out of this that you're looking for. And that'll do it for tonight. You all have a wonderful night.